On behalf of the Campus Climate Research Committee, I would like to welcome you to our presentation today. I invite you to pause for our UWL land recognition statement. We would like to recognize that the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse occupies the land of the Ho-Chunk people. Please take a moment to celebrate and honor this ancestral Ho-Chunk land and the sacred lands of all Indigenous peoples. We began by exploring the question, what is campus climate? Essentially, it is a measure of experiences on campus, perceptions of campus, and for the purposes of the study, perceptions of the institutional commitment to diversity or university support for diversity. I'll hand over to Grace.
How did we get here? In 2021, UW System asked all of the UW campuses to send our students the Diverse Learning Environment Survey, or DLE, which is a campus climate survey from the Higher Education Research Institute, also known as HARRY, at the University of California, Los Angeles. This survey measured many of the facets related to campus climate, including the university's support for diversity, or what they call in the survey, institutional commitment to diversity. The results showed large gaps amongst our BIPOC, LGBTQ+, and gender nonconforming, non-binary students with regards to institutional commitment to diversity. But the survey instrument itself had only 4 questions within this factor and gave no operational definition of institutional commitment to diversity. In order to grow in this facet, the university had to learn 2 things in order to improve. 1, how do UWL, BIPOC, LGBTQ+, gender nonconforming, non-binary students define institutional commitment to diversity? And 2, what are their experiences? So methods. After the quantitative data from the survey was analyzed, a group of us set out to conduct focus groups with the students. Focus groups create opportunities for participants to share experiences and perspectives in their own words about a particular topic. Focus groups elicit participants to interpret their own experiences through shared dialogue while empowering their voices. In these focus groups, we sought out the knowledge to define institutional commitment to diversity at UWL and to learn the students' perspectives of UWL's institution commitment to diversity. We recruited students via OMSS and the Pride Center. Each of the 27 participants were paid $25, and once the focus groups were completed, we began the qualitative analysis to find common themes in the students' words. We found 5 major themes surrounding relationships, campus communication, inclusive teaching, environment, places and spaces, and representation. We also learned that institutional commitment to diversity is seen as fractured and often invisible at UWL. The following slides come from students' voices where themes emerged. As a team, we summarized the words of the students, and we also found quotes for this presentation. The quotes capture the concepts the students were conveying. These are what students are saying and not our interpretations. We are here to elevate student voices, and their feedback may make us feel uncomfortable. This is not a reflection on any one person, but rather student feedback on a broader scale. And now Mita will begin talking about these themes.
Thank you, Grace. So as Grace said, I'm going to start talking about the first of the 5 themes, which is relationships. And on the left, you can see the summary based on the focus groups, the analysis that was done by the team of summarizing and expressing and clarifying what the students wanted to, how they felt and how they felt about all of these issues on campus. And on the right, within the code, that's actually quote from students in this context of what exactly they said. So for example, in the context of relationships, they talked about fostering connection between and amongst underrepresented groups. They, of course, want to be seen, valued, heard without judgment. They are longing for reciprocity as stakeholders. So they want to listen and they also want to elevate their voices. They also feel that more action definitely is needed across campus related to diversity and inclusion. And they definitely want to see greater participation, greater attendance in student-led diversity events. So reading one of the quotes by a student in this context of relationship, there is a difference between being tolerant and accepting. And right now, I feel like we are operating at a tolerant level. You can handle being in a room with someone different than you, but are you accepting their differences? That's in the ideal world, we would all be on a level of acceptance and allyship. But right now, we are just tolerating. The next theme is on campus connection. And there they are really craving empathy, want to connect to the human side of the enterprise, to see more of that being nurtured and fostered. Lack of awareness about diversity initiatives across campus. That was also one of the things definitely they talked about. They want more coordination in terms of diversity initiatives, but also in terms of that being communicated across campus. So it can be D&I events and other related things. Be responsive to bias incidents that emphasize community values while also upholding accountability. So campus incidents in the classroom that should be dealt with, that should be talked about, that should be reported, and that all of this should be done in a more transparent and accountable manner. In this context, something they said, I think I personally just feel like maybe we don't get informed enough about what necessarily that commitment is and the actions that are being taken. Or maybe it's just information I happen to be missing. I just don't feel necessarily included in all the process at all. So that's exactly what we are talking about. For the next theme, I will pass it on to Brian, and Brian will continue.
Yeah, in the next theme relates to student experiences in the classroom. So students called out with praise, some instructors really exhibiting leadership in this area, but there were inconsistent practices across campuses in terms of the use of pronouns, the inclusion of experiences, diverse experiences and diverse identities. There was a wish, multiple students expressed a wish for D&I topics to be integrated into all subjects, not just the ones where it's most like directly aligned, explicitly aligned. And also there was acknowledgement that there are efforts underway to educate all students and employees about diversity, but that these need to be expanded to extend their reach. Samples student voice here is integrating that into course material too. And I understand that that's not going to be relevant to every subject, but there's a ton of subjects that you could use examples of people who don't fit inside that dominant projection to use as educational examples. The next theme relates to environment, which we can break down as places and spaces. A number of students commented on the beauty of La Crosse, the area, but the challenges of navigating campus within a diverse identity came up multiple times. Diversity is emphasized as occurring within D&I offices. OMSS and the Pride Center were mentioned multiple times as highly utilized spaces on campus, but there was a limitation on how much space was available. These spaces are often full or packed. And other campus offices, co-curricular academic units were not mentioned as much in these focus group conversations. Students who also had concerns about facilities on campus, specifically gender inclusive housing and restrooms, and also really the way we think about identity, focusing more on intersectionality. White being white passing, where do I belong? Not enough trans, non-binary, and fluid representation and inclusion. And also size inclusive desks not being present in classrooms. Sample student voice here is I'm at OMSS 24/7. There are days where either no one can fit in there and then you walk in, just walk out because all the seats are taken, because everyone feels welcome and that's amazing. Then it's like, oh, I just wish there was a little more room. Now we migrate to the Cove and then there's only a few couches in there, by the way. Okay, that's our little corner. So this sense of small, really important spaces, but not big enough. And the final main theme here we'd like to highlight is representation. Navigating a predominantly white institution is challenging. There's a number of ways that is challenging, ranging from microaggressions and bias and belittling jokes, as well as lack of consistent inclusivity in various spaces and concerns about trust. Many students participating in these focus groups wanted to increase the diverse students and employees on campus, and through admissions and hiring, and also they expressed an appreciation for movement in the right direction, but asking for a sincerity as we move forward. They called out to the land acknowledgement and the Truman Lowe Center for the Arts as being examples of steps in the right direction. Sample student voice here is, I feel like in my classes, I'm always the one offering the opinion of, well, coming from someone from a background of being queer or being a person of color, growing up in the Milwaukee area where you always see this, it's always me bringing the diverse side. So there's this burden that it would be nice for more people to be involved in these efforts of representation. I'll turn it over to Aaron.
All right, so then where do all of these 5 themes take us? So what we did as a committee was talk about how those 5 themes could be operationalized into an operational definition. So the definition we've come up with here is a university's ongoing efforts to authentically steward transparent practices, policies, procedures, and places that embrace intersectional identities through quality connections, relationships, and community. We arrived at this using a grounded theory process, building out each of the different themes that we were able to take from the transcripts of the focus groups, and thinking about how those different themes would fit into a definition that we could use to create or to help us reach the goal of cultivating campus belonging. To encapsulate our operational definition of institutional commitment to diversity, we wanted to pull out 2 quotes that we really felt really encapsulated everything that we had talked about. The first quote is, diversity kind of just means as a minority, you don't really feel alone in a space. You don't want to feel like you're the only person of color, and you want it to kind of feel safe. You kind of want to feel like you have people around you that you can relate to and trust. And the other quote, I don't want to just see more people that look like me on campus, but I want it to feel like everyone's a part of the community. And it's not just like, oh, the numbers are up of people of color, but that's the community is up as well.
Before we move into specific action items, we want to share a thought experiment about climate and culture change. Many researchers on campus climate view colleges and universities as fragile ecosystems where actions of individuals, teams, or collective units influence the overall campus environment. The inverse is true as well. The larger campus and thereby decisions can have lasting impacts down to the individual level. In some ways, we can consider the campus as a relational chain. What's most important here as we review action items is to consider what is possible at your individual level, how you can engage in conversations at your department, or potentially use your roles and or positionality to move the campus in a direction towards equity and inclusion. While there is a division of equity and inclusion on campus, the work cannot be done alone or in isolation, which is apparent in the research in this project. Rather, student participants want to see action and behaviors that demonstrate institutional commitment to diversity, as well as equity and inclusion in all aspects of campus life, including in your work and department at the micro level. So that leaves us with the question of what can you do? And we have some recommendations that fall out along the lines of the themes. So in keeping with the relationships theme, some ideas that emerge for things you can do within the context of campus leadership, asking folks to really leverage Student Diversity Organization Coalition to share campus goals, to report progress, and to provide feedback on initiatives. And so really engaging with that coalition. Training UWL employees on cultural competency, dismantling a culture of fear by really leaning into our vulnerability, perhaps through a common reading. Thinking about boundaries and how we can be clear about what is or is not acceptable. And in addition to that, when those boundaries are violated, holding one another accountable for that. Attending diversity events, students want to see your support at these events, and also want you to learn from them. With relation to the theme of campus connections, some of the recommendations include a centralized and coordinated communication channel, in other words, a one-stop shop for communications. Promoting D&I events, we might, for instance, embed these into our curriculum, into extra credit opportunities, et cetera. Developing a crisis response team to respond to large campus incidents. Having units craft and share newsletters to students, with students. Adding events to university calendar and then promoting those events on digital signage throughout campus. Really more advertising of Diversity Organization Coalition and diverse student orgs. And then leveraging the Equity Liaison Program to disseminate information across campus. All of those are strategies for addressing the theme related to campus communications. And I will turn it over to Will to address the remainder.
Thank you, Becky. So under the theme inclusive teaching, here are some of the recommendations that we had. We'd like to, for folks to include in your syllabi, your pronouns, and maybe talking a little bit about how the process of pronouns will be utilized in your class. We want people to learn to pronounce the names of students in their class, fellow faculty and staff, and encourage students to add that pronunciation of names onto Canvas if they would like to. We are very fortunate to have some wonderful offices and programs on our campus. So attending CATL inclusive teaching events, participating in the ADL bias workshops. We also want to focus on training equity liaisons to facilitate some of the ADL implicit bias workshop information. So kind of the train the trainer program to get that out there to everybody. We hope that people invite the Center for Transformative Justice into your classes. And lastly, to incorporate diverse paradigms and researchers into curriculum, as was kind of stated earlier. Under the theme of environment, our recommendations are development of a campus-wide chalking policy, expand the Office of Multicultural Student Services and Pride Center spaces, educate our students on intersectionality, invite biracial or multiracial speakers to campus. Some things that we need in the classroom are size inclusive desks. So get rid of those seat and desk combinations that are attached. Also, the need for more left-handed desks in the classroom and mobility in the classroom so that people with disabilities can get through the classroom easily. And it also was noted that we need a few more left-handed desks, but if we got rid of those desks that are attached, we wouldn't necessarily need those. And then increase participation in gender inclusive housing through promotion and increase the number of gender inclusive restrooms throughout campus. And our last theme is representation. And here are some of our recommendations to address bias immediately. So really encouraging folks to speak up, expanding the financial aid and scholarships for our BIPOC and LGBTQ students, noting that a lot of these students are working 2 or 3 jobs. Department strategies and implementation would be very important to talk about. And then increase student and faculty of color. So reevaluating maybe some of what we do in the hiring process and reassessing some of our recruitment and admissions. And now I will turn it over to Tara, who will discuss where we go from here.
So these action items are part of our campus ecosystem, that there are pieces that drive our strategic plan already, as well as can drive where we go into the future. Where we are right now with our strategic intentions as a campus is that we've paralleled what the intentions are to some of the themes in hopes of helping making a pathway into why this research is relevant and how it can help push our university forward in our mission. So really thinking about the way in which relationships are translated into investing in our people here at UWL, the ways in which the campus communication can help us achieve excellence through equity and diversity. We've paralleled that inclusive teaching can help advance our transformational education here at UWL. Again, the academic environment also plays a role in how we can achieve academic excellence through equity and diversity. And then thinking about how diverse representation and evaluating and reassessing some of our policies and practices can help bring in and investing in our people, but also how that is a marker to investment of identities for the individuals who are already here. So what is next? We hope that you take what you've learned from today's presentation back to your units. And again, think about that call to that thought experiment that Dr. Elkins posed in this presentation. what are pieces that you think that you can do in your own lens or role, as well as what could be possible within the unit, knowing that those can directly influence our campus culture and climate. The other thing to note for where we go is we've also noticed that there is a need for addressing and studying the climate for our international students here at UWL. The 2021 Diverse Learning Environment Survey, a lot of our students, international students, were back home in their home countries, and so we were not able to capture their experiences. And so we know that that is a limitation in that study and a limitation in our current study, and feel that it's necessary to start understanding what those experiences are here at UWL. So that is the what's next for the committee. All of our work is grounded in research. We can share resources with you if you would like. You can contact me for those resources. And this is the information if you would like to connect with any of the members of the research team. But at this point in time, I would like to open the floor for any questions regarding the study. Thank you.